Hey YouTube, PKD here. A little background on this debate to bring some clarity about what happened. So Terminus wanted to debate Brenda in Clubhouse VC, but Jack took over and had the entity conversation instead. You find some interesting moments here, such as Jack claiming that Ask Yourself conceded to him that name the trade doesn't work if one adopts the particularist moral framework. Personally, I don't recall Ask Yourself ever making such a concession. Um, but besides that, a key moment in this conversation is when Jack actually names a trait. And the trait he names is irreducible normativity. So I jumped in and asked, if it turns out that there are no irreducibly normative properties, would it be okay to kill humans for food? Jack dismissed this question as uninteresting tautology, essentially saying it would be okay to kill them because they lack the property. Well, I find this position just as repulsive as when a theist says if God didn't exist, then um, murder would be okay, right? Second, I think my question could be phrased even stronger, such as if there are no irreducibly normative properties, would you object if humans were a factory farm? I didn't get the chance to ask this second question, but I think it would have been more revealing. If Jack says he would object, then I would rather discuss what he actually finds objectionable instead of debating irreducible normativity. Um, that way we can restate name the trade in terms of what he considers objectionable. On the other hand, if he says he wouldn't object to killing humans for food in the absence of irreducible normativity, then I find his position repulsive. And please let me know in the comment if you um, share the same feeling. Um, and now I have like one more question for the audience. Many people suggested that Jack should be questioned about what irreducible normativity even means. Personally, I don't think it means anything, and it would turn into a meta-ethical discussion rather than an applied ethical one, which would just lead us um, onto a massive tangent. Instead, I prefer to go straight for the reductio. So the question is, which approach do you like more? Should Jack be questioned about the meaning of irreducible normativity, or we just go for reductio? Um, and lastly, around the 10-minute mark, I unmuted myself and jumped in, but OBS didn't record my mic. So basically, I was asking Jack if he takes that the trade is irreducible normativity, to which he says yes. Yeah, besides that, I think Terminus did pretty good job. Um, and yeah, so enjoy the debate between Terminus and Jack.
Well, we have DMs together apparently, so
Okay,
it'd be a
but
bit
I
odd for
don't
you to outrun.
remember things. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's okay. Do you
I'm
remember having your short-lived debate with Vegan Gains in the politics server?
yeah, I do.
Okay. I'm one of the people that wanted to see that go on a little longer. I thought it was a shame that it ended, and I'm happy to give you the full NTT debate if you're willing to engage with it.
NTT. Name the trait?
Name the trait. That's right.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Trait.
Well, it just refers to something that separates animals and humans sufficiently such that if we applied the separating thing that's making it okay to kill the animal to the human, it would make you okay with killing the human.
Oh, I don't think it's really okay to kill people.
Yeah, I know. But you do think it's okay to kill animals. And so if your answer between those two questions is different, there must be some differences between them that account for that difference in answer. You
I
see what
think
I'm
it's a
saying?
sliding scale. I don't think that there's a singular breakpoint.
That's fine. It could be a sliding scale, but there's going
Yeah.
to be some features that we add that slide the scale far enough to say now it's factory farmable.
Yeah, this is like
But
that
I
what's a
don't
woman
know.
crap where like it always has to be that
Because the
one
animal is
thing
factory
that tips
farmable, right?
things.
So we could
You
slide
could
that
you
scale
could
far enough by
you could
adding
make
in
the same
features
argument. You
to
could
make
make the
it
same
factory
argument
farmable.
for like, what makes a human versus like some other
I
kind of
didn't hear you.
primate. What's that one thing? What's the one thing that makes something human? And it's a terrible argument because it's never one
JD,
thing.
mute yourself right now.
Someone put a muzzle on JD.
But I don't. When you say something, does that include something irreducible?
Could be anything that actually is a true proposition of the world in question.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, presumably there are a set of statements that we can make about our world, right? And those statements will either be true or false. One such statement would be there's a country that has a president, right? That statement's either
You think humans are valuable to the point where they cannot be killed, and you think animals do not have that property. It's not in virtue of anything else. What's the
I
problem?
think, yeah, I think that there's a lot of animals we should treat better than we
Wait,
do.
wait. I just want to get clear on this. What's
Okay.
the problem with that?
the problem with what?
What I just said.
I don't know if there's a problem, but I'm not sure if you said much.
Somebody thinks it's not okay to kill human beings, right? And they think it's okay to kill at least some animals. It's not in virtue of anything.
In virtue of anything at all?
Yeah, it's just irreducible.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by irreducible, but when you say that it's not anything at all, it makes me think that even if we took all the things that are true of the animal and applied it to the human, it would still not be okay to kill the human, even if it
I'll
just literally was the animal.
explain to you what I mean by irreducible, right? So if I ask, why do you think something is wrong, right? Eventually it's going to bottom out, right? Presumably, right? If you say, well, I think this is wrong in virtue of X, right? And then I say, well, why do you think X is wrong, right? And you say, well, I think X is wrong in virtue of A, right? Eventually you're just going to have something that's irreducibly wrong, presumably.
You mean some sort of circularity?
No, meaning
Oh,
it's
when you said
wrong.
X to
It's
A, it
wrong
sounded
for,
like,
it's just wrong for no further reason, right?
okay, well, there's no further reason than what? Would it just be like saying, well, I morally value this and I don't morally value that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, that would be uninformative in the same way if I asked someone, what do you mean by water? They're like, well, I just mean water. It's
Look,
like,
I
well,
don't,
I know
I don't
that
think,
you're.
I don't think you're tracking. So look, tell me a principle you think. Tell me a moral principle that you hold to.
Uh, I'm like a threshold deontologist.
But just tell me some action, right, that you think one should perform or should not perform.
Okay. One action I think people should perform is foreplay.
Yes, foreplay good, right? Now, if I say in virtue of what is foreplay good, what would you say?
Oh, it's something about my desires.
Right. So if somebody just says, okay, well, then it bottoms out in my desires, right? What's the problem with doing that in the case of humans?
There wouldn't be any problem with doing that, but I don't know what exactly it is that they're desiring, right?
They're desiring that humans don't be killed, and they're not desiring that animals never be killed.
Right, but you notice that what I'm asking them to do is to tell me what things we'd have to swap over to make their desires change, right? What's true of the animal, which if true of the human would make you now desire to kill the human, right? And we can imagine some array of differences that we add on, and eventually their desire would change. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
The point is, The point is, if it's irreducible, it's not in virtue of anything else.
What do you mean? It's in virtue of their desires.
That's it. It bottoms out there, right? I don't think
I'm just
desirable, right? I think this is desirable, but it's not in virtue of anything.
well, if by it's not in virtue of anything, you mean that there's no like causal link that led up to it. There obviously is. I don't know what
I'm not.
exactly.
No, I'm talking about justifications.
Okay. So, like, if there's a justification and it's just, well, I just don't desire to kill him and I do desire to kill the animal, right? And they say it's not in virtue of anything, not even all the features that make up the animal, right?
The
And they
point
could just say,
the point is that it's irreducibly undesirable, right? That's what I mean by it not being in virtue of anything, right? The justification just bottoms out there.
yeah, but Jack, look, what you have to notice is you just said there's no other reason. Does that include all the things that make up the animal? In which case, if I apply all the things about the animal to the human, it still wouldn't change anything?
Look, you're just saying to somebody, you're just asking somebody, is this wrong, right? And they say, I guess not, right? And then they say, or they might say, yeah, I guess it is, right? And if you ask them, well, what makes it the case, right? They're not going to, they're not
That's
going to.
not exactly what I'm asking, though. It's more specific. I'm actually asking what's true of the world where we factory farm the animal, which, if true of the world where we factory farm the human, would make it permissible to factory farm the human.
Maybe here's a clearer way to think about it, right? Let's say human beings have the um, the do not eat property, right? And some animals have the it's okay to eat them property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the problem with that?
Well, there's no problem except that it's uninformative to me. I would just ask,
I
like,
don't know
what's
what
the
you
do
mean
not
by,
eat property,
I don't know what you
right?
mean by it's uninformative,
Well,
right?
I'm going to explain that. Just let me kind of go on there. So, if they say, oh, it has the do not eat property, that just sounds like the same thing as saying, I just desire against it, right? In which case, I'm just going to re ask the
It is
question,
the
well,
thing.
what's true of,
It
I
is
would
the
just ask,
thing, right? And so the point is to ask for something further is to ask for something in virtue of which some irreducible property obtains, right? But that's incoherent because what it means to say that it's irreducible is that it's not in virtue of anything else.
no, it is in virtue of their desires. Now, if you want to say their desires are not in virtue of anything,
I'm saying
and we're
their
just,
I'm saying their desires are constituted by desirabilities that are perceived, right?
okay,
And what's being perceived is this property of it's desirable, right? Or not desirable, right?
right, that's
And
all fine. That's compatible with everything I've said.
thing in,
Remember,
there's nothing in virtue of which, right, it's desirable or undesirable.
well, no,
That's right, yeah. I don't know why are you talking about moral realism?
PKD, just let the two of them talk, please. We don't want a third person. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, so look, Jack, the original question when I'm asking someone to name the trait is I'm asking them, what is it that's true of the animal, which, if that were made true of the human, would make it permissible to kill the human? I.e., I'm asking what
If
things that are not true of the human that are true of
it
the
had,
animal, which, if we apply to
if
them, and hold on,
if
I
it
need to talk
had
for a little longer.
if
Hold
it
on,
if,
we're going to need,
if it had the it's okay to eat property or it did not have it, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I was going to say that and then point out the issue. If they say, oh, it's just the eatability property, that's uninformative because it's just the same as saying, oh, why do I desire
You
to
you
kill it? Because
say-
I
you
desire to
keep
kill it.
saying that it's
Okay, why are
uninformative.
you not letting me
You
go for a little longer?
keep saying that it's uninformative, right? To point to a property that's irreducible, right? But what you mean by informative is to ask in virtue of what it holds, which would just mean it isn't irreducible.
Yeah, the desire may not be reducible if by
The
that you just
desire
mean that we're not referring to causal
the
explanations.
desire is constituted by the desirability property that's perceived, right?
Yeah, but what affects the desirability of it? It's going
It's
to be whether or not
irreducible.
it has the features that make it desirable, such as
It's irreducible.
having.
It's irreducible. It's either there or not there.
Okay, now you're using irreducible in a way that makes me suspect that you're not meaning the same thing as me. Now I will say it's reducible, actually. If by reducible you mean that
I told you what I mean by irreducible, right? It means that the justifications bottom out there.
okay, and by justification you mean what?
You don't know what I mean by justification? Reasons, right? Reasons that are given, right, in support of some belief.
Yeah, reasons are things that motivate people, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you not think that the creature having some certain feature, like looking a certain way, can motivate people?
It can, right, in some cases, right? But the point is, if it's irreducible, it stops there.
Okay, so you're saying that there are things that can be not true of either case that are going to motivate them, right?
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, look, remember, we have the two scenarios in which they gave different answers. We have the world with the animal holocaust and the world that adds the human holocaust. And we ask, why is the answer different, right? What's motivating the difference in the answer using our previous semantics there? And you're saying, oh, they're just going to say what motivates them is whatever they desire. But what is what they desire? Whatever motivates them. Well, what motivates them? Whatever they desire. That's just circular. It's uninformative.
Look, what motivates them is the desirability property, right? And that property does not hold in virtue of anything else.
Okay, but Jack, what we then need to ask is what things do we have to change about it to make the desirability property go away?
That's to say that it holds in virtue of something.
And it does.
That's what that means. It's not irreducible.
Yeah, that's why I'm disagreeing with this idea now of irreducible that you're referring to, which is probably why PKD was bringing up moral realism, because that's also what I thought you meant at the beginning.
That there are any irreducible value properties.
Yeah, of course it's reducible.
What's the argument that all value properties are reducible?
Well, I mean, I don't have some formalization ready for you, but I could cook something up if you really need it. I could give you some vague sort of sketch if you want to see, like,
well, look,
thinking.
I don't accept the idea that all value properties are reducible, right? So you need to give me a reason to think that all value properties are reducible. What's the reason why I would? What's the reason why I would accept that?
Oh, well, presumably you hold things like the laws of physics to be true. You hold that there is going to be some sort of cause for all your desires, and that there are features that could be changed between any given situation that would change your desire output on that situation, right?
I'm not a naturalist.
You're not a what?
I'm not a naturalist.
Oh, I don't know what naturalism has to do with that.
What do the laws of physics have to do with value? I don't get it.
Well, they're what causally leads to you valuing something.
We're not
Because your
talking
brain
about
works according to the laws of physics.
we're not talking about causes. We're talking about justifications.
Yeah, again, like justification if it's just going to refer to what makes this thing true, right? It is going to be made true by the laws of physics. Like,
No, that's a naturalist view. And I don't
okay,
hold.
well, naturalism I thought was related to metaethics. So I don't know what
What?
that has to do with.
It's a metaphysical
Yes.
thesis, right? It's a metaphysical thesis that all values are reducible to natural facts, right? I don't accept that.
Yeah, that's distinct in a particular way, though. What they're saying is that the very idea of moral goodness is like related to the laws of physics of the world. That's some other weird stuff. That's why it's a weird metaethical view that neither of us probably sign off on.
Okay, I don't think you're really tracking what I'm saying, so I think maybe we should just end it here.
Well, I'll just say some final things if you want to end it here. The first thing I'll say is if you're going to say that the normativity is irreducible and you're not referring to moral realism, then it seems like you're just saying that if someone holds some desire, there's nothing they can explain why they have the desire.
I don't know what you mean by moral realism. What do you mean by moral realism?
Oh, it's just going to refer to like the definition that Stanford EDU typically uses.
Is it the view that there are categorical moral facts? Because I don't accept a view
Stands
like that.
independent moral.
Yeah, but
And I'm assuming you don't hold that view, by the way.
well, I'm a relativist. So is it consistent with relativism?
No, moral realism is not consistent with relativism.
Okay, so then I'm not a moral realist.
Yeah, which is why I said if you don't mean moral realism by this, and then I tracked the thing that I'm guessing you are saying. Anyways, so as I was saying in the closing statement, look, if you're just saying it's irreducible, right? I don't know exactly what you're trying to mean by that, but if you just mean something like, well, there's nothing that's going to explain why you have the desire other than like the causal explanation that led to the creation of your brain or something.
I've explained this before, right? The desires are constituted by the perception of desirabilities. Those desirabilities are not reducible to anything else.
Okay, the perception of desirabilities. Are there things that affect what you perceive as desirability?
I mean, there could be.
So there's a case where that wouldn't be?
There might be cases that.
Are you agnostic on it?
I guess so.
Okay. Well, that would be strange. Maybe I could derive a logical impossibility from that if you give me some time to write something up. But like already I'm surprised you're not skeptical of such a view, given that it would be affirming a contradiction if someone's asking someone to name the trait, because they'd be saying, oh, actually, despite the fact that I gave two different answers to these, yes to kill this and no to kill this, there is nothing separating these two situations that can account for the difference in the answer. Meaning that even if we made all the things that were true about the first situation that accounted for being desirability.
You're just presupposing generalism against a particularist view. So there's no contradiction.
Oh, it doesn't matter if you're a generalist or particularist. That's actually orthogonal to this. Because even a particularist will agree that there's going to have to be some difference, because a particularist will say that the same creature.
Well, the difference is some irreducible property, right?
Right, but notice how if you're a particularist, you're not going to affirm a contradiction, right? Unless it's like a dialetheist particularist view or some cringe like that. But if you say, well, this particular creature, I'm not okay with killing it, right? You're not going to, just because you're a particularist, say, I am and am not okay with killing it. So if we made all the things that are true of the animal true of the human, right?
No,
Even
you
if you're
can't
a
make them all true because the value properties will differ in the two cases.
Oh, wait, that's the point. We're trying to get the value to go from yes to no. in the killing situation.
Look,
Oh my God.
if the value properties differ, right, you can't equalize them.
Hmm? Do you know what we mean?
Equalize all the other things but the value. The value, right, is not there in virtue of something else.
Wait, I want to get clear on something. So, are you saying that we can make all the propositions that are true of the animal, true of the human, except for the value one? We'll just not name that, and we'll get to why this is interesting. You're saying we can make all propositions that are true of this world, true of the world where we Holocaust the humans, and you would still say that the particulars will say, I'm not okay with Holocausting the humans in the human world?
All the natural facts. You can change all the natural facts, right? But the normative facts, you can have all the same natural facts and two different normative facts.
Mm-hmm. I think I see what's going on here.
Oh.
So it seems like what you're saying is if you don't equalize the value property, you haven't actually equalized everything, and they're not affirming a contradiction because they'll say, well, creature B still has the value property despite all these natural properties being in place. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Well, there's going to be two issues. The first one is now I don't know what they mean by value property. Because it's actually incoherent to me at that point, and I would just have to ask them if they even mean anything when they say that. The second issue is if it does cash out to be something coherent, it's likely that it would be captured by one of the natural facts that we apply.
I don't know
For
what
example,
I captured.
You don't know what I mean by captured?
Yeah, it's an irreducible
It just
fact.
means that it's going to be encompassed by one or more of the features. Like, for example, if the feature is like Ferraris, if someone says car, that captures Ferrari because Ferrari is a subset of the set car. Something like that.
I don't see what that has to do with anything.
Well, let me explain it. If someone says, oh, but the value property hasn't been switched over, for all they know that it actually could have, because there could have been something that was said in the trait swaps that actually
They bottom out
the value property.
in perceptions, right?
Bottom out in what?
Perceptions. They bottom out in perceptions.
Okay. You realize that the perception is something that's true of both worlds, right?
Somebody can look at one set of natural facts, right, and perceive different value facts.
Right, but you realize that the perception they have, that is true of both world A and world B.
They're different value perceptions.
Yeah, but those value perceptions, like if the value perception is when I see A, I'll feel this way. When I see B, I'll feel this way. They have that in both worlds. It is true in world A that they would see world A this way and world B this way. It is true in world B that they'd see world A this way and world B this way. That's not something differentiating the two worlds.
I don't understand what you're saying, but look, this is, I don't think you really like tracking what I'm saying, so I think maybe there's no point in continuing.
Well, maybe I'm not. Maybe there's other people with a slightly different lexicon that I could talk to who have some similar view to you, and we could try to get to the bottom of it. But
Yeah.
as far as I'm gathering, I'm not quite understanding what you mean when you say value property, if not to refer to like the desires that someone has, in which case that one is not changing between the two worlds, so it wouldn't be a symmetry breaker, which is what I was just talking about with world A, world B. Or maybe you mean something else. I don't know.
Yeah,
Jump in.
I don't mean desires by values.
Oh, okay. That's where the talking past has been going on. I'm not sure what you mean then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Who was the person that said they wanted to jump in?
Well, maybe Philip wants to jump in, but how about PKD? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to because I know Jack's view. He've
Uh-huh.
explained it to me. And I'm just
Yep.
saying, like, all that Terminus needed to say there is to ask him if it turns out to be the case that there are no irreducible value properties, is it okay to factory farm the human?
Why would Jack accept that? I think he
But I mean, why
holds
is
the
that
value properties.
why is that an interesting question, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's because humans have the do not eat property that it's not okay to eat them. Right? So if you say, yeah, if they didn't have that property, would it be okay? It's just like trivially true.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're getting at, PKD. Do you want to flesh it out?
Yeah,
Like
You're
the
sort of
very
saying
yeah, I can
if it was
elaborate.
okay, if it was okay to eat humans, would it be okay to eat humans?
No, look, because when he says that something is morally okay, that would mean that it has
I
this.
don't think he ever did. Wait, he never said anything was morally okay. Did you, Jack?
Well, I
Well,
take
just
it.
moral there.
Can I add something, please? So I think what
Sure.
I think the natural tendency when Jack says, people don't have the it's okay to eat them property, or they have the do not eat property. The natural inclination is to say, in virtue of what do they have that property? But Jack is saying it's irreducible.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
So it's not in virtue of anything, but that doesn't mean that it's like morally wrong because he's not a moral
Yeah.
realist.
So I thought
Right.
I'm sort of just like summing that up, sort of almost just for my sake to
Yeah,
sort of sum it up and see that I understand it correctly. Okay.
PK, do you see what he's doing? He's saying that it's got this property, but that's not the same as saying it's morally wrong.
You don't have to be a realist to say something's morally wrong, but that also doesn't interact with what PKD was asking, because what PKD is asking is if it turns out that there are no irreducible normative facts, does that make it not okay to eat the animal?
That's
Or
right,
does it
because
make it okay to eat
it's very similar to like
That's the tautology. It's just saying if it were okay to eat
yeah.
humans, would it be okay, right? It's not interesting.
It is interesting because it's very similar to something that the theist would say, like somebody who believes that good and bad are things that are in virtue of God's approvals and disapprovals. So presumably if we want to say, hey, if God didn't exist, would you be okay with like murder and like killing people? And they have to say yes, and I would say yeah. I take that to be a
Okay.
reductio on your view, right?
Why is that a reductio? The
Yeah, what's
theist does say that. Actually, we've asked theists that questions.
It's like saying in virtue, if it were the case that X were not morally wrong, would it be okay to do it? It's silly.
It's actually more specific. He's saying irreducibly morally wrong.
That's right.
Which means that's supposing moral realism, isn't it?
I don't understand, like, I don't really understand, like, what is the alternative, right? Do you think that your values don't bottom out somewhere?
I do
They
think they
could.
bottom out somewhere.
So then you accept the idea of there being irreducible values.
Oh, wait, I think value is reducible to like properties like desire, scarce, and concerns, things like that. It is
Is that like,
reducible though.
so those are not irreducibly normative themselves? So you're like some kind of naturalist?
I'm anti-realist.
I don't, okay. I think maybe just this is, this is just not going to be productive because like I'm asking like very straightforward questions.
Can I actually ask, Jack, do you know that naturalism is a staunchly realist view?
You're talking about moral naturalism, right? And all I'm talking about is naturalism about value, right?
When you say value, that makes me think of like ethics right away. So if you mean something else, I guess I'm not familiar with it. So
I'm just talking about things like reasons, right?
that also sounds like it's related to ethics.
It depends on what you mean by ethics, right? If you think that epistemic norms, for example, are ethical, right, then than
I do.
talking about ethics, right?
Yeah, I do. I think that there are distinct categories you could give for like the common parlance use of morality versus the common parlance use of like reasons for what we call knowledge. But fundamentally, they're both the same thing on my view, and I think maybe PKD would agree. We're just talking about like some sort of desires that agents have.
You know, I'm not talking about desires.
I'm interested in what you mean then, if not that.
Yeah, it's just too complicated to go into.
Okay. Do you have a
Why
guess at
is
what
your
you might mean?
name?
Yeah, Sarah.
I wanted to ask him why his name is runs like a bitch from AY.
What the? Oh, because in the server, maybe there's like some lore there. Maybe he like ran from Ask Yourself or something.
Yeah, sounds like it.
PKD, are you also support of this vegan position?
Yes.
Didn't we have an Ask Yourself guy come in recently, Jack, and he got pissed and left after trying to do the name the trait thing?
Yeah.
Jax, what happened when you ran your objection to Ask Yourself? Like, let's go to the source. How did that conversation go?
It sounds like he ran like a bitch.
He said that, well, he eventually conceded that he, I don't know, he made some kind of concession that the argument does presuppose generalism. And so if one were a particularist, it wouldn't work.